Welcome into the Sharp Sports YouTube podcast. My name is Andrew Sharp. We'll be talking everything Denver sports and beyond. Please like and subscribe if you are a sports fan like me. Let's do this.
Welcome into the Sharp Sports YouTube podcast. My name is Andrew Sharp. Well, the Denver Broncos go to Kansas City and lose on Sunday 16-14 in a game that was highly competitive. Broncos certainly had a chance to win at the end, but unfortunately came up just a bit short with some critical mistakes that the Kansas City Chiefs were able to take advantage of. And this is going against a Chiefs team that just knows how to win. They don't even play well and they win, which makes them incredibly tough. Because if they ever play well, you're really in trouble. And the Denver Broncos showed that they are improving week to week, but they are not where the Chiefs are at. They don't have the record experience. This is still a very young Denver Broncos team. They're improving week to week. There are a few moral victories. I've said on this podcast before that no one really cares about your power rankings or any of that. It's about winning games. And this is not a game that I thought the Denver Broncos could win, but they hung with the two-time defending world champions for about 3.5 quarters. And clearly, this is not the Grand Canyon between the Chiefs and the Broncos that has existed for the last 45 years. The Denver Broncos were able to play a very competitive game against the Chiefs. Broncos famously broke the losing streak to the Chiefs last year. But unfortunately, the Denver Broncos have not won in Kansas City since Peyton Manning was quarterbacking the Denver Broncos with the team that would eventually go on to win Super Bowl 50. So Chiefs are still dominating. Frankly, they're dominating the entire league and the AFC. So it's often said that more games in the NFL are lost than won. I would think that this is a classic example of that, where you can outplay somebody for quite a while, but if you don't make the critical plays in the end, unfortunately, you don't come out on top. So we're going to do a little breakdown right now of the 3 ways, unfortunately, the Denver Broncos lost this game to the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, I would be remiss if I did not talk about the kicker in this game. Fortunately, Will Lutz did not have himself a great game. He did miss a field goal earlier in the game in the first half, which was certainly makeable. Second one was blocked due to the Kansas City Chiefs, unfortunately, scouting with the Denver Broncos that had some protection issues when it came to their kicking game that the Kansas City Chiefs were able to exploit by bull rushing one of the weaker offensive linemen on the Denver Broncos. Will Lutz has been on the Broncos for a little while. He's a Sean Payton guy. He was brought in to replace Brandon McManus. And McManus, it's funny, I had to go back and look. I wasn't sure. I remember I thought it was more of a Sean Payton guy, Will Lutz, but McManus did unfortunately have a down year in 2022 when his field goal percentage dipped down to 77.8. He has since gone on to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Detroit Lions, and now the Green Bay Packers, in which he's basically kicking essentially like he did for the Broncos. But Will Lutz is our guy. Will Lutz, to his credit, at the end of the game during press conference, said the kicks are on me. And by the way, the Kansas City kicker, Harrison Butker, went 3 for 3. So it's a make or miss league when it comes down to this. These games can be very competitive. The Kansas City Chiefs made their field goals. The Denver Broncos did not. And I know that sounds simplistic, but when you come down to these very competitive games and you're playing against the best in the league, those kicks matter. New England Patriots were able to build a dynasty in the early 2000s with Adam Vinatieri field goals. So you have to win in all 3 phases. The Broncos won in 2 out of 3. Unfortunately, the third phase being the kicking phase, they did not have a good day, but I'm not going to certainly hold it against Will Lutz, especially after he owned it. And it's time to move on. Will Lutz has actually been quite a good kicker since he's been here. He's basically been making his clips actually at a higher percentage in Denver at 87.3 than he did in the first 6 years in New Orleans, in which he made 84.6% of his kicks. So he's actually kicking better in Denver. My guess is the Mile High has a little to do with that, with kicking elevation, but he's actually kicking better now in his career than he was in New Orleans. So, not going to hold it on Will Lutz, but got to make those kicks. The Denver Broncos were slightly fortunate that the Chiefs, who have questionable right and left tackle situations, not the best, their starter, Wanya Morris, went out for the majority of the game with a lower leg injury early in the second quarter, replaced by second stringer Kingsley Sumatetea. I'm going to butcher that name regardless. But the strength of the Chiefs' offensive line is Joe Tooney on left guard, Creed Humphrey at center, and Trey Smith right guard. The tackles have always been a little weak on the offensive line, as Kansas City has shuffled and rebuilt their offensive line in the last 3 to 4 years. So Broncos were able to take advantage. They were definitely getting crazy pressure in the beginning of the game. Finished with 4 sacks, but you must take advantage of this Chiefs team when they give you the opportunity, especially when that tackle, who has played so well, is hurt. And he actually managed to come back for, of course, the final drive of the game. Lovely. So he came back just in time to essentially pass block for the final drive that put the Chiefs on top. The Broncos obviously had one more chance at it. According to PFF, Pro Football Focus, best defensive players, defensive lineman John Franklin Myers, 74.4. Defensive lineman DJ Jones, 72.9. These are their ratings by PFF. Cornerback Sat Surtain, no surprise there, 72.8. Outside linebacker Nick Benito, who had a sack and a bunch of pressures. And outside linebacker, newly paid outside rusher Jonathan Cooper, had a rating of 70.5. So the Broncos got the right defensive players to put pressure on Patrick Mahomes. They took advantage of the Chiefs' situations when they could. However, in my opinion, they should have taken advantage of them even more. Broncos missed on a couple of Pat Mahomes scrambles. Granted, he's Patrick Mahomes, but you have to take advantage of these opportunities when they present themselves to defeat the Kansas City Chiefs at home. At Sean Payton's post-game press conference, he referred to this as a very painful loss. And I would agree that once they watch the film, they're going to realize how much the Denver Broncos left on the table. In saying all that, the Denver Broncos offense was not great. Granted, Kansas City's defense is the best it's probably ever been in the Patrick Mahomes era. They're a super good defense. This was a defensive struggle on both sides for the most part. But in saying that, this Bronco team cannot rush for 49 yards in very many games. Quarterback is improving. He's still a rookie, but asking him to win the game for you, I think, is a bit much, especially against a team like the Chiefs. So 49 yards rushing, it's not going to get it done. And unfortunately for the Broncos, they were unable to make the critical plays when it mattered the most. But Bo Nix had himself a pretty good game. He ended up finishing 14 for 20, so they only asked him to throw the ball 20 times for 160 yards. He took one kind of semi-disastrous sack in which Bo tends to roll out to his right and then try to go back a different direction. Bo Nix, this is the pros. Don't do that. I've seen him do it, kind of hesitate to do that a couple times. If you're going to run and you have wheels, pick a side. And I would prefer if you rolled out similar to what Jake Plummer used to do, because you can throw on the run or keep running it, but trying to reverse course mid-stride. There's too many fast guys in the NFL. It's not going to work. So, slight bad habit. I hope he doesn't pick up. I'm not going to overreact to one game, but don't develop bad habits. If you're going to run, pick a dominant side, go with it. Anyways, that being said, bit of a downer episode for this one, but I didn't pick the Broncos to win this game. The Chiefs are the class of the league and the AFC. So on to the next, with the Broncos hosting the Atlanta Falcons this Sunday. hoping to go 4-0 against the NFC interconference games they have this season. So, anyways, thanks for tuning in. My name is Andrew Sharp, Sharp Sports 82 YouTube podcast, and we'll be back next week discussing the Broncos against the Atlanta Falcons. Thanks for tuning in.